Kia ora, everybody. Sorry to cut into that song, but it's time for Isolation Blues. Ke te whakarongo mai koutou ki Arrow FM, your community access radio station. And I've got Jane Ross calling in soon. Jane usually gives us lots of wonderful tips about what sorts of films and video events and all sorts of things we can engross ourselves in during this lockdown period. But she's wearing a different hat today, I believe. She's talking on behalf of Firewood whānui, and that'll be tremendously useful to us. And, yep, I think she'll be calling in about a minute's time. So I don't want to start anything deep and meaningful because she'll just interrupt. And then what will be the point of that? I may be changing to a weekly program once level 2 kicks in. I got a few guests for next week, so it'll be more than one day a week at that stage. But you never know. My lights keep going up and down, and I feel like I'm in a controlled environment, controlled by somebody else outside of my purview. Anyway, let me just check. Jane should be calling in via her video device any second now. Yep. Get my glasses on so that I can see her. So, we had some information, didn't we, from the Prime Minister yesterday about what level 2 could look like. And, oh, speaking of Jane, there she is. How you going, Jane?
Hello, good morning. Good morning to you, Michael. Good morning, everyone.
Indeed. Ki te pehe a koe anyway, Jane.
Ai ki te pai aho.
Oh, that's good.
How are you?
On the whole, well, you know, I mean, I was just saying to Joanne last night that people, so I'm not including you in this, people who are a little bit older might be finding this whole isolation thing a little easier to cope with, because I'm perfectly happy having Joanne as my bubble. And I do not need a life full of event to keep me going. But nonetheless... Yeah, anyway, so I don't need to go out for a coffee. For a start, me and Veronica make a cracker coffee.
You're feeling very contained in your bubble.
Yeah, in my bubbles now, because I've got Veronica has begun work again, which is... Yep.
Wonderful. That's wonderful that you've got Veronica Beckham with you. Yeah. Cool. So today,
Jane,
Michael...
You're speaking on behalf... I was about to interrupt you to tell you to say what you were going to say anyway, so sorry. But you are speaking on behalf of Firewood whānui.
Yes, today I thought I would speak on behalf of Firewood, who I work for. I'm the communications and marketing coordinator for Firewood, and I have been for the past 3 years. So today, because I was thinking about lockdown and health and wellness, and I spend quite a large part of my week doing communications around how to stay well and thinking about people's wellness. But at the moment, my focus really is thinking about how we can stay well within the season that we're in, with autumn and all that autumn has to offer, but also putting a focus on staying well within our bubbles and what that can mean for different people in different communities. So I really wanted to touch base with everyone listening today and just to talk through maybe some wellness tips for getting through it this time. How does that sound?
I think that's great, Jane. Yeah, excellent. Because as we move from level to level, I think people can get confused about what each level means to them. And there are some things about your health, whether your physical or your mental health, that are consistent across all levels. So give us the gen.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, first of all, I'd like to invite anyone to check into our Facebook page. So if you just go to Fiorda, and that will come up, and anyone can like and follow that page and access all the information that's there in regards to getting through lockdown, advice on how to live within different levels, different alert systems, and also just how to make the most of everything that's available to us to support us at this time. So please do check out that page. But I'm going to crack on with, I guess at the moment, probably one of my number one recommendations for staying well at the moment is to make sure that you've got your flu vaccination done.
Yes.
So when the leaves start to change and the days start to become colder, I think it's time to make steps for that kind of seasonal wellness. And this is the time of year where we can make the best start with that. Now, flu vaccinations have been available from the start of April, but because this year it was different in that medical centres throughout New Zealand are operating on a reduced capacity, meaning half of the team's working from home, half of the team is working on site. But also with those increased measures around hygiene and sanitisation, the way that we've done our flu vaccinations is actually to set up outdoor clinics. Now, with Fiorda, we organised a drive-through clinic, a bit like McDonald's, but without the fries. So, and on that's kind of how we joked about it. But in all
would you like
seriousness,
antihistamine with that?
Yeah, don't forget your repeat prescriptions. Yeah, so we basically set it up that we had phone calls and text messages that went out in a staggered approach. So we started first of all with contacting all of our enrolled patients in the over 75 bracket, and they were told on particular days to come or be assisted to come along, and people came in their cars in a very orderly fashion, and they were first checked in and ticked off with the COVID screening questions to make sure that no one was experiencing any COVID-like symptoms. And then a nurse from our practice would go out and actually give the flu vaccinations to people while they were actually sitting in their car. And then everyone would sit in our car park for the next 20 minutes while we could make sure that no one had any adverse reactions. So we had the whole process worked out within our car park system. And a lot of medical centres have operated in a similar way. They've either had an outdoor marquee or figured out a line of progression of cars to make sure that the flow of people coming through was happening in a really safe health and safety approach to it. So then we started with our over 65s, and we opened it also to anyone who had long-term health conditions and pregnant wahine as well. So from the 28th of April, Dr. Ashley Bloomfield, who I'm a huge fan of right now, I really think that guy's a legend. Oh, cult status now. But he basically announced that from the 28th of April, we'd achieved getting most of our vulnerable people through having their flu vaccinations. It could now be open to the general public. So my recommendation is that just call your medical centre first, check that they're running a flu vaccination system that day, and just check on what the procedure is for your own individual medical practice. And of course the pharmacies are offering flu vaccinations too, so it's just where your preference is. But
I got my
situation,
flu vaccination from the pharmacy quite early in the piece, actually, because being an over 65 and having respiratory problems, I was deemed to be, one of the more needy cases. I must say, I thought, I'm thinking social distancing, and I imagined a sort of 2-meter long needle advancing towards me across the chasm between me and the person administering, but it wasn't like that at all.
No, it worked out well for you.
It was good. Yeah, I've had it every year because as an asthmatic, I was deemed to be vulnerable well before I became 65, and it's become a regular thing
Yeah.
with me, and I think it's good to be safe.
Yeah, and I think come autumn and come the 1st of April, it's one of those things that we should always mark in our calendar. As you say, particularly if you are somebody who has asthma or any kind of respiratory condition or any kind of long term condition, because you're already fighting and managing that. So the last thing that you want is to be compromised with having the flu on top of that. It just will affect you in a greater capacity. So if you can, I would highly recommend, if you've not had your flu vaccination yet, ring your local pharmacy or ring your local medical centre and just check through the procedure of how you can come in and get that done. Yeah, number one tip.
And remember that you're taking one for the team. I think some people think,
Yeah.
am I being selfish when there's not a shortage of vaccines, but in some areas there's
No.
been a difficulty getting the vaccines out to people. But with a contagious disease, everybody who gets vaccinated is helping the population at large.
Well, that's right, because even without showing any symptoms, you actually still could be carrying the flu. It's highly contagious. And so you are not only protecting yourself, but you're protecting those around you. So leading into that, my next tip would be to make sure that you carry on with really good hygiene practice, particularly as we move through the levels. Hygiene's going to be key, and specifically what I mean with that is making sure that you're washing and drying your hands. So the World Health Organization has a good tip. They say that if you're not sure how long 20 seconds is, sing the happy birthday song to yourself twice. So if you imagine you've got your soap and you've got your water and you're lathering up and you're singing happy birthday to you. Now you go through that twice and you know that you've done your good 20 seconds of good soapy lathering. Now the reason why the soap in particular is really important is soap has a property that makes it really good to actually break down the bubbles of germs. It actually breaks the barrier of it. So it's really important to keep using soap 20 seconds, lots of soap and water, and then dry your hands really thoroughly as well when you're finished. Yeah, really good.
I felt like a surgeon because, I'm trying to do every single part, every crevice, and I feel that when I've done all that, which I'm doing several times a day, I feel I'm ready for surgery. In fact, I feel robbed of that next step. I want to go in there and do something with somebody's cranium.
Well, stay away from Veronica, please.
Okay.
One thing that I'll add to that as well is it's not just about for this time for lockdown. It's a really, really good way of actually avoiding passing on any kind of virus and any kind of germ, because that it's the contact with contamination, with actually touching things and cross contamination. So it's just really good to remember to always wash our hands. But in doing that, one of the things that can happen is that it can really dry out our skin. So at this time of year as well, cold air and wind can actually be really, really drying, and it can cause cracks and dryness and hardness for our skin. So it's actually really important to keep our skin moisturized. It gives it another layer of protection as well. So when you're washing and drying your hands, also I would highly recommend just having some really nice soothing moisturizer to keep your skin protected too. Yeah,
I'm a victim of that already.
See what I'm saying?
I've had to
Yeah.
I've had to put a plaster over that because the cracking got so bad.
Oh, yeah, I've had a bit of that as well. I've got quite. I'm a bit sensitive on the old skin, so particularly, and I've been out gardening a bit as well because that's really good for our wellness at the moment. And I mean, I've got to say too, Michael, autumn has always been my favorite time of year. I love the colours. I love the light. I love how the environment is changing, and these blue sky days as well. Yes, we might get a bit frosty and we've got that fresh snow on the tararuas, and that's going to cause, that sudden change in air temperature. But the payoff with the blue sky days here in the Wairarapa, for me, it's worth it. And I mean, I get asthma as well, and cold temperatures, sudden drops in temperature is one of the triggers for my asthma. So, my next tip is at this time of year, it's also to be preparing for the colder weather. Now, whether or not that's gathering in firewood and getting it stacked and covered, and I'd highly recommend, if anyone is needing to do that, that you get on with that, because I've already heard that quite a number of suppliers are running out. So, word of mouth is fantastic for that. Like, check in with your friends and relatives, who are the good suppliers, who's still got a good supply left, and really, I would highly encourage you to sort that one. But also just to think about other ways of making sure that your home is damp free and got a good amount of air circulating through it, and that you've got some kind of capacity to keep it warm. And I'd highly, highly recommend going to the Energy Smart or Energy Wise websites, because they've got really, really good information about how to keep your home dry, ventilated and warm, for your own health and well-being. But also they've got really, really good information about all the grants and subsidies that are available to all New Zealanders. If you qualify, check to see what the criteria is around that as well. That would be a really good piece of homework to do, is to just check out, how can I make this home as healthy and as warm as possible throughout the colder months. Yeah. What do you do, Michael? Do you have a fire?
No. We used to have a kind of chippy in the kitchen, which I thought was a silly place to have it, because the kitchen's going to be the warmest place anyway with all the cooking. And the reason we got rid of it is because, we decided we didn't want to pollute anymore. As an asthmatic, living in a place where there are a lot of domestic fires around us, I'm vulnerable to that, and of course the atmosphere is too. So we used the supplement, the government supplement, towards getting a heat pump and improving insulation, and that was a really good measure that the government introduced to help us kind of make things a little warmer. We've got quite a cold house. It used to be a rabbiter's cottage out in some wooded area once, and it was brought in and plonked on our property. And it's although we've got underfloor and ceiling insulation, there's a lot going out the walls and through the sash windows and stuff like that. So I think you do lose a lot through kind of loose window fittings and things. Those things are going to help you in the long run. The trouble is it's affording it. And for many people, it's all very well to say, get your place fully insulated, get aluminium windows or whatever. But, you need you need readies for that. And that's hard.
Yeah, you do. And I think you need a plan. And if you check out the Energy Wise website, it actually goes through, you can go through an online checklist, and they will give you recommendations of what you can do. For example, I know in our bathroom, one of the windows has got a gap. I can feel cold air coming through it. So one of the things that I know I need to do is just when I can access it at my Tem, is to get some of those window seals that need to go in to close that gap. Those sorts of things, they cost a couple of dollars a roll, and they'll give those sorts of recommendations. Yeah. So I think have a plan, and certainly with this house that I live in as well, it's also a cold house, and we've had to do things in stages, like do the underfloor insulation and ceiling insulation. Well, that was 1 year, but it took a while to get to that, and then in another year I've got to think about when will the fire need to be replaced, and those sorts of things. So it's always thinking ahead. We do have a wood burner, and I'm happy to say we always would run out of wood. I'd always think we'd have enough, but we'd always run out, and it would still be freezing cold. So and every year I think I'm going to be better at this, but this year I've actually finally got onto it, and I think I've got enough now stockpiled to actually get us through. And in the right size and the right dryness. And, it's a treat, because the last thing I want is to be struggling to get a fire going every morning. And that has been the case some winters. So I think I've got it cracked this year. I think I've finally figured it out.
And that is a good example of planning ahead, because firewood takes a long while to dry properly. If it's been recently cut, you're not going to use it that season. And also stacking it outside in such a way that the air can get in underneath and around it helps with the drying. If you just plonk it on the floor, on the ground, or on your carport or wherever, and pile it all on, then it's going to take much, much longer to dry. Good stacking practices.
That's right. Yeah. And there's lots of places that you can go on the internet, just Google what's the best way to store firewood, and there'll be lots of tips and advice here for people too. I'd also really recommend just opening up windows at this time of year, and even when it's cold, just for a little while, just to let out any moisture that's in the air, because damp homes can promote mold and dust, which can affect asthmatics or anyone that has a respiratory condition. So again, just check out Energy Wise. I think it's a really comprehensive place to get information about how to create a warm and dry home, and it just sort of jogs your memory at this time of year of what things are good to have as a routine for actually just making sure that you're keeping your home ventilated too. Yeah.
And don't think that just because you're not a designated vulnerable person that things like mold aren't going to be a problem for you. Mold is a very bad thing. You don't want to have it.
Yeah.
You need to identify it, get rid of it, and then put in the practices that Jane has mentioned to ensure that it doesn't continue. Because you can be a healthy person and really be struck down by mold.
No, you don't want mold in your home, so it's best to get on with that. If you even take a walk around your home today, and if you can see any mold that's starting to grow around your windows or windowsills in particular, anywhere that there's been some dampness or moisture or a leak, just check it out. And I prefer using more natural products. I use a lot of aromatherapy oils like lavender oil or tea tree oil, or even sweet orange has got really good antibacterial, antiseptic properties. And I mix up a really cheap formula. It actually cost me 12 cents to make a litre bottle. Once I've actually got, say, something like some lavender oil, some baking soda, and some hot water and a little bit of soap, mix that together. And that recipe you can find at a really great website called greengoddess.co.nz. And it gives you a whole lot of recipes for making your own really good cleaning materials, but using natural products. I don't like a lot of chemicals in my home. It actually affects my asthma, so it's counterproductive for me. So I've gone old school and gone back to using a lot of very natural and beautiful smelling products. I love smelling aromatherapy. It's very uplifting to have different sorts of natural scents in my home. Yeah.
Great.
Moving along. Quit smoking.
Next
so,
tip.
My next tip, of course, has got to be quit smoking. And this is coming from an ex-smoker, and I know how much healthier I am. And it was hard. I'm not going to lie. I quit a million times and started again. But I'm glad that I'm finally a non-smoker. Now, if anyone is thinking about quitting, and you'd like some support around that, you'd like to talk it through, I really, really do highly recommend our stop smoking coaches that are based at Firewood. Jackson Davey, they're wonderful people. They know from their own experiences what it's like to be a smoker and to give up and to go through that process. That journey is something they've lived through themselves, but they are qualified and experienced in their roles. And the really great thing is that you don't have to be enrolled at Firewood. Anyone who who wants to quit smoking in the Wairarapa can access those services at no cost to them. It's available Wairarapa wide. So our reach goes from Cape Palliser up to Mount Bruce. So anyone living within that region, we can offer that support to them. Of course, during lockdown, we can't offer our face-to-face service, which is something that Firewood does really so well. But they're actually coaching people through the telephone or video link, and we are actually still receiving referrals to the quit smoking service during lockdown, which I'm really, really, really happy about. And there's lots of support available to you and to your wider whānau. So we've got an incentivised program specifically for hapu mama, our pregnant wahine in the Wairarapa. That's an incentivised program. And we've also got incentives that can be offered to the whānau of pregnant wahine as well. So if you're thinking about quitting, if you're ready to quit, you're motivated to do that, please call us, because we really, really do want to support people on a smoke-free journey in the Wairarapa. And this is the month that we celebrate World Smoke Free Day, which happens on the 31st of May in New Zealand every year. Right. And it is a celebration because here's the good news. 84% of all New Zealanders are now smoke-free. And that in itself is worth celebrating. And here in the Wairarapa, we've had some amazing role models step forward and tell their stories as part of our celebration. So I would highly recommend keeping an eye on our Firewood Facebook page for that as well. And we always have a big feature in the local Wairarapa midweek around the themes and just encouraging that celebration, because it ain't easy to quit. We know that. It ain't. And I think you're amazing if you can do it. It's hard. It's really hard. But if you are ready to make that step, that's the first place to start. And we just really want to support people with that if we can. Yeah.
Great, Jane.
Have you ever smoked, Michael?
No, I never have. No, it's not
Good
something that's interested me. I might have, tried it a couple of times, but I'm talking about, the odd puff as a young person, and I never was tempted either for the physical thing of it or the supposed sophistication that comes with it. It just didn't. It used to annoy me. When I was an actor, I'm an actor who also had lots of nasal and respiratory problems. And I would go into the radio drama studio because a lot of my acting was acting in radio plays. And I would have spent the morning before I got in there using all sorts of nasal sprays and everything to clear myself up so that I could deliver the lines without sounding like that. And I'd walk into the studio and everybody would be smoking, and boom, all that work would be down the toilet. And it really used to annoy the hell out of me. I mean, I did have an attitude about smokers. I did think that they were doing me a personal disservice. However, I do acknowledge how hard it must be. I've known people go through that difficulty of giving up. I have to say, though, look, you've got wonderful support here in the Wairarapa. I think we're famous for it. And good on Whaiora, because they're at the forefront of this. And the support that you provide is excellent. Nobody need be alone going through this. So thanks for all of those measures that you've mentioned, all of the contacts, because, man, if this region does anything well, it's their smoke-free work.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, I'm actually really proud of what Firewood offers, and we're inspired by the whānau within our community and the strength that they have. I mean, we operate at Firewood because of our whānau. We wouldn't exist if it wasn't for them. And I really want to acknowledge the strength of Wairarapa whānau and the support that they give to each other, how they tautoko each other through difficult times. But also they are the people. we all determine our own health and wellness. You know, we understand what we need to be healthy. And when somebody makes a decision to do something to actually improve their health and wellness, it's a bold, brave decision, and it's a really cool one as well. And just really wanting to acknowledge just that we're all in this together. Yeah, yeah. And I guess that's how we see that when somebody begins a smoke-free journey. You know, we're all in this one together. We're behind you 100%. Yeah. Right. How are we doing for time? Because I've got more tips, but I can roll them into next time.
Give us another tip, and then we'll move on, because we are knocking at the end of our allotted span.
Yeah. Well, I guess my next one then is to make sure, even though it's becoming cooler and we might not be so inclined to be drinking water, for example, it is still so important to keep hydrated, even in the cooler months. I would always take fluids before you leave the house. You know, have a really good drink of water, a nice cup of tea, and drink it, because keeping hydrated improves your immunity and your immune system, and it gives you that kind of boost to prevent you from picking up any bugs or germs or viruses that might be circulating out in the community. So I guess my other big thing is water is pretty much one of the best things that you can possibly drink. And leading into that, that message was actually being said on a new cooking show called How to Eat Well for Less, that's been running on TVNZ, but they've localised it. It's now the New Zealand version of How to Eat Well for Less. And they were also basically saying, drop the Coke, drink water, drink milk. They, if you can, I've got a dairy allergy, so I can't. But keep hydrated, keep the fluids up at this time. And if you do that before you go out in the morning, if you start the day right by having a really good amount of fluid, then you're putting your best feet forward when you leave the house every day. And at the moment, drink before you go for your walk around the block in your bubble, and just encouraging that connection with nature as well is so important right now, whether that be gardening, going for a stroll, and connection with people. And that's where I'll actually leave it today. I just really want to encourage connection with tangata and whenua at the moment, just to boost everybody's well-being. It's one of the best things that we can do. I really encourage everyone to stay connected. Mother's Day this weekend. So mihi to all the mums out there, and thinking about the aroha that's going to be going across New Zealand, perhaps in a different way this year. But please do stay connected with the people that you love.
Yeah, well, it may be in a different way, but I actually think we're all feeling the aroha very, very strongly. It's really, despite the isolation, we feel more bound together as a people, and I think that's been wonderful.
Aye. So just to finish, I do want to recommend again going to the Firewood Facebook page. I've been doing a lot of posts. I always do the posts, but throughout lockdown in particular, I've been doing a lot of posts that are specific to taking care of our health and well-being throughout lockdown. There's lots of advice about places that you can go and contact and connect with, and just empower yourself around information around taking care of your mental health, your hinengaro. I've put up a lot of information about where you can access places for healthy eating ideas, but also exercise programs. I've even put up some links to the Les Mills workouts that are available on TVNZ On Demand, but also some really great YouTube clips on Siva Samoa, and also mindfulness for all age groups. And this week I put up some really great mindfulness exercises about how to access information around atua, and connecting with nature. And these ones are actually for our tamariki. So they're really good at helping with calmness and connectedness. So please do check out what I've been sharing. It's there for the community.
Jane, thank you. Look, that's been wonderful. It's been a departure from your film talks, but I think that the messages are similar. It's feed your soul, feed your body, feed your mind. Thank you very much for helping us with all that.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Always a pleasure.
Great. Well, have a good day. We'll talk again.
Bye. Ka kite anō.
Bye. Jane Ross there, talking on behalf, as I say, of Whaiora Whānui this morning. We'll have her back because she has an endless supply of tips. Go to the Whaiora Facebook page for all those resources that she's mentioned. Lots to think about. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to hydrate. I just realised I'm not good at this. I always used to associate hydrating with sport, and I would put in heaps of physical activity and then guzzle massive amounts of water. Now that my knees are stopping me doing that, I don't have that same connection. I have to remind myself, keep hydrated. Keep drinking, Michael. All right, that's it from me. We'll talk again. Bye.